Hi there. My name is Beth Green. Some people call me Granny Rocks. And here today, we're going to talk about a topic which a lot of you think about, which is how to effectively speak to a Trump supporter. People ask, and here's our answer. So uh, there's quite a lot to talk about in this topic. And in a minute, I'm going to be bringing our guests on. They usually come on, after I've spoken. But this time, there's a special reason why I'm going to be bringing them on sooner rather than later. So let's start by bringing on my guests. And the first one is Lizzie and Catalina. And the reason that we're doing it this way is that Catalina asked a very good question. And I said, I should probably answer that on the show. And so I invited her to come onto the show to talk about why she was asking that question, where that question came from. And so since I was going to be having them on, so I'm also going to be bringing on our other friends, Todd Benton and Amy Canner, and James Maynard.
Hi.
So, welcome everybody to our show tonight. I think this topic is on the minds of a lot of people. So, I'm going to answer the question how to effectively speak to a Trump supporter in two parts. The first part, I'm going to keep very short because the real essence of what I want to say comes in the second part. But before I do, I'd like to invite Catalina to ask me the question and tell us what inspired her to ask that question.
Um, uh, well, I was listening to Senator Booker, right? Yes,
Yeah, Cory Booker.
and when he was on the standing on the Senate floor, and um, at one part, right after he had um, been on the floor for 24 hours, and he continued. He didn't sit down immediately.
No, I don't understand how he did that. I would have been at the bathroom immediately, right?
Exactly. They gotta have made him a beeline for that. He was done.
Right.
Anyways, he was talking about that we have the power to do this. The Senate can only do so much because it's voting in numbers. But for some reason, it inspired me to do stuff. So we are going to a protest this weekend. And just my experience, I have family members, very close family members, who are Trump supporters. And it's just nobody says a word because it's just not worth the trauma. And I'm like, and if we're going to be going out and doing things and speaking and sharing our position on things, it may come up that there's people who are very for what's happening in the government, and I don't want to just be clamming up, and we're taught to be good little girls and keep your mouth shut. And yeah, so that's why. And I don't want to get in a fight because that's not beneficial for anyone.
Right.
But that's why I think. Hmm.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for explaining that. That's very helpful. Um, so I'm going to start with the first part first because it actually does relate to the specifics of how you asked that question. But then I want to get into what I would do and how I see this whole issue. The first thing is to ask yourself, what is your intention? Why are you talking to a Trump supporter? And you started addressing that right in your question, and so I'm so glad that you did. There's one thing is having a close family member or a friend or something, and you completely disagree with them, and it creates incredible amount of tension. And the only thing that I could say about that is to have an honest conversation with them and say, It's been very tense between us. It's been very tense between us. And that's because we're both very passionate about the way we feel, or at least I am passionate about how I feel. And I don't want that to get in the way of us having the relationship that we can have. And so, in that sense, I wouldn't be ignoring it, but I'm also not intending to overpower them or argue with them or any, because I think that's you're because what is it that we're afraid of? We're afraid that there's going to be hard feelings, a blow up, you're going to lose love. So I don't want to be afraid of losing love by speaking, but I also have to ask myself, is there an opening here? Am I really interested in what they have to say? Do I really want to know why they're supporting Trump? No. I'm horrified. I don't want to know it. So I have to be very honest with myself about who I'm approaching and why I'm approaching them. And so that would be just my thought, just to say, hey, let's just talk about talking about this. And, if the person is looking for an opportunity to talk about it, they will respond and they'll say, I'm really glad you brought that up because actually, since Trump has been in office, I've been a little bit upset, because of this or that. Or they won't, or they'll be very defensive about having voted for him. And you can just feel that. So, I used to say a prayer. My spiritual community, I called it the stream. My work was called the stream. And I said to God, open the channels through which the stream can flow. If there is no channel through which that information can flow, don't bother. If there's no opening for a real dialogue, don't bother. And I'm going to come to why that is in a minute. So then the other reason that people might want to is they are angry and they want to put down that Trump supporter because they're so furious. So we have to be honest with ourselves. Now, I get all kinds of garbage on Facebook and YouTube. I get comments from people who are just vile towards me. It is obvious that there is no channel in between us through which the stream can flow. There's not going to be a conversation. They are there to put me down and they're going to hammer at me. Now, occasionally you'll get somebody who actually is saying something with some substance, and maybe you can address that. But again, you have to intuit, be in touch with yourself. Is there really an opening for a conversation here? And don't be discouraged because I'm going to get to the real point in a few minutes. So, what other reason would you talk to a Trump supporter? You're having a debate at school and they're coming up with their facts and figures. Well, I'll tell you something. I would never do that because I can't remember facts or figures. So I would leave that to a better debater. And the final point in this is if you're trying to convince them, forget it. Don't go towards it with the attitude as I am going to convince you because we don't want to be convinced. They don't want to be convinced. So you say, well, should we shut down completely, not talk to people? No, that isn't what I'm saying. But I'm saying, first and foremost, we have to be very honest about what our intention is in having this conversation. Are we trying to make them look bad? Are we trying to vent because we're frustrated? Um, are we in pain because we feel they're wrong? If there's something that you really feel in a sincere way that you want to talk to them about, is like, oh, how could you do this when you see him deporting immigrants? People like us are being attacked. You know what I mean? You might talk about that, but make it deep, make it personal, make it real. So now I want to get to my overall response to that. But do you have anything to say about what I've already laid out? Is that all making sense?
Mhm.
It's like you have to have a good reason to do it.
Mhm.
And it has to be a good reason, and not an ego based reason of I'm going to get them or I'm going to shame them or whatever. I think the answer to this question lies in the question. The question is how to effectively speak to a Trump supporter. And my answer to that is you don't. You don't. And I'll tell you why. Because if you think of them as a Trump supporter, you will never have a conversation. So if in our minds we're giving, oh, I'm talking to a Trump supporter, my aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my mother, whatever it is, you're not thinking about your aunt, your cousin, your uncle, or your mother, or your best friend, or the neighbor next door. You're thinking Trump supporter. You've got a picture on their face, a target, so to speak. And don't do it. Never speak to a Trump supporter. Speak to a person. Speak to a person who may or may not have voted for Trump. And you don't even know that they did, although they may say they did. But speak to the person. Now, you can say, are you crazy? No, I'm not crazy. It's just like when I said before, if this is somebody who you're close to or were close to and it's getting in the way, have the guts to sit down and have a conversation about how this is impacting your relationship. Then you're speaking to the person, you're speaking from your heart to their heart. Now, but I have much more on this topic, on this speak to the person, don't speak to the Trump supporter. Say what you would say if you were talking to a human being, not a monster, not a symbol, not an adversary, a human being. If you, going back to intention, if you're curious and you're interested in why people support Trump, then it's pretty straightforward. You sit down and say, as you know, I really dislike the Trump administration, even more so than I thought I would, because I think, I really disapprove of what he's doing. I think it's cruel and heartless and all that. But I know you as a really decent person. So I'm really interested to find out why you see or how you see this, why you see it differently. Okay. Now, in that case, you're having a conversation with a person because you actually want to know what it is that they are saying. I see that we have a message from Jeffrey, but there is no. Oh, now I see the message. Here, a piano, a smile, a peace sign. Great. Thank you,
Peace.
Jeffrey. Um, okay. So in that case, you really are genuinely interested in what they have to say. You're not doing this as the gladiators in the Colosseum. But mostly, I say the same thing to everybody. I talk about why the nation is in bad shape, the spiritual and moral decline of our country, why we're in this position, why people are angry, why people even say, well, why I think a number of people did vote for Trump because they were angry and they were looking for change and they didn't see the Democrats as the change agents. Um, I would go out and I would say the exact same. That's why I'm saying that the first part I wanted to go through just to go through different ways of seeing it. But my way of dealing with it is to say the same thing that I would say to anybody because I am going to assume that we are all people, that we've all been suffering from living in a society based on exploitation, money, that people have felt powerless. Gee, haven't we all felt powerless in this society where our destinies are determined by forces we can't control, like bosses that we can't control, and other people like that, or men who've left us, or women who've abandoned us, or how painful life is, how upset we are because of our children doing self destructive things, um, how the society doesn't really provide us with much sense of security that our nation, in fact, there taking away the little shreds of security that we have. I would talk about all that. And I talk about the need for revolution, inner revolution, social revolution, economic revolution, all the things that we talk about on this show and in our new Declaration of Independence, how we need to have a society that meets the needs of people in the earth. And we haven't had that. And it's gotten worse and worse over the last couple of decades. And so we're all looking for a way to fight back. And this is what I believe in. And I would put out the new Declaration of Independence or say to them what we always say: the purpose of society is to meet the needs of people and the earth. Do you agree? What do you think? What do you think the purpose of society is? And so that kind of ends the whole question in my mind. Is I would say the same thing to a Trump supporter as I would say to anybody else. I would say that we live in a society that is corrupt, that is inhumane, that is stressful, that people are suffering, and we don't know what to do about it. And we're looking for solutions. And this is what we believe we should be mobilizing around. This is based on the assumption that some of those people actually are willing to acknowledge that they feel the same way. Then you have a conversation. This is not about convincing people. This is not about shaming people. This is really basically about communicating to people what we really want. So that's how I would answer the question. Don't speak to a Trump supporter, speak to a person. So now I'd love to open up the conversation. I don't know, Catalina, if you want to make a comment first about the what I offered. Uh, this is Catalina's first time on the show, and she's doing great. So,
Um, well, I just want to thank you because, yeah, because if the focus is off of the negativeness, then and just see them as a human, it gives them the chance to do the same thing, or to see you as a human too, and not some crazy whatever. I don't know what they think. So
crazy left lunatic, as
yeah,
some
that
would say, right?
sounds like it.
Right. You mean that you don't think that everybody should have health care? You know what I mean? It's like a crazy left lunatic. And you know what's so beautiful is we know that a lot of the progressive agendas are things that people, vast majorities of people in the United States actually agree with. So I love what you're saying, Lena, and I'm so happy that this came across. And so, with that in mind, you can go back and look at all the people that I talked to. And I say, well, do I want to talk to my neighbor? Do I want to talk to my relative? But that's how I would approach everybody. And my husband, James, he asked me, well, have you talked to so and so about it? And I said, about Trump. And of course I have. He's heard everything I had to say that I said to other people. He was in the room. Did I have to pick him out and say, and by the way, how do you feel about your vote now? No, because it's like just what Catalina's saying. It's we're focusing on the positive, and that's what we want to mobilize around. So thank you. I'm relieved.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. Who would like to share next? Amy.
Yeah, I think that's great. Because I have to say, when you said don't speak to a Trump supporter, for a second, I didn't catch where you were going to go with that.
I
I
fooled
thought,
you, huh?
what? Oh, not if you or look at them as a thing called a Trump supporter.
Yes.
Because for a second, I thought, oh, all right, great. I just won't, which I don't anyway, or I haven't. I have to admit, I haven't spoken to anyone that I know of that supports Trump or supported. It could have changed their mind. Who knows? But I do know when I see really angry posts about someone saying, if you voted for Trump, I'm going to hold you responsible for A through Z, I know that's of no value. And so that's where I like to write something like, okay, I understand being furious. I've been there and back multiple times every day. But how about looking for what we have in common, what we want, which is the new Declaration of Independence, which says what we're looking for: a society that supports people in the earth, or meets the needs of people in the earth, and signing it and passing it on, and at least having people think about it, whether they sign it or not. Looking for some connection as opposed to more and more division, because it's so easy. I know every time I hear about the latest thing he's doing and destroying, it makes me just want to scream. But so I keep saying, just don't read it. Don't read it. I know he's going down the path of destruction. Just don't read the details anymore. Pay attention to what I can do that's positive.
That's right. That's right. And you see, this is how we're going to grow the movement. We're not going to grow the movement by going out there and yelling at people. We can yell about what he's doing if we think it's bad and it's hurtful. And I believe in that, because I think the bully needs to be stopped. But we don't yell at the people. We look for common ground, not the way they were talking about it in the beginning, about, compromising. This is not about compromising. This is mobilizing around a positive vision, as we've said before. So thank you, Amy. That's great. Okay, James.
Thank you, Lena, for bringing it up.
Yeah, isn't that cool? You see what you started? I was not going to talk about this tonight.
I know. I can admit that I thought.
Okay.
I mean, I can admit when I saw that, I thought, oh, you mean how to talk to these crazies? So obviously I came into this with a little bias.
Well, but that's perfect. That's why I'm speaking. Okay, James had his hand up.
Right.
Yes, I really liked the broader context that you brought in. And that's how I would like to speak to a person of that nature, which is, okay, so for decades now, we've seen a decline happening. We've seen growing income inequality. We've seen static wages. We've seen cost of living going up, things like that. So life has gotten harder and harder. So let's talk about our needs, and let's talk about ways to meet those needs. And something I've come across that I think can help is this new Declaration of Independence, which is basically promoting a cooperative society where we all have a share and we're all making sure everyone's needs are met. So what do you think?
Yeah, see, that's great, James. And we do have, by the way, the link to the new declaration is in the posts, the description of the post. And please click on it. For a couple of hours this morning, the link wasn't working. I said, oh, perfect. But anyway, it's working now, or it was at 10 o'clock this morning. So, yes, and that's a very good point. Let's talk about what our needs are, and what we're looking for, and what we want our society to be, and how are we going to get there. And, if people don't respond to that, let it go. Let it go. There's no point. Don't waste your energy on somebody who's just there to attack you, or for you to attack. But I can't believe that we can't find a lot of people who are feeling the same pain and are concerned about the same thing. But they may say, oh, that's idealistic. We'll never get there. And, you can always say, well, so was the original Declaration of Independence. The idea that we were going to get our independence from the British Empire seemed pretty far-fetched. So don't give up. So thank you, James. That was very helpful. A nice contribution.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to share?
I'll share just briefly and echo what James is saying. I think that is the most, effective approach to, like, if I am talking with someone, say, I'm an independent, I'm not, for one or the other, I'm for like what is possible. And, very similar to what James said, it hasn't been great under either administration. Both have been totally dominated by money and power. And so, it's not a surprise that we're here, but we need to find a way out of it that's actually, I feel is going to be constructive and it's going to meet our needs. So this is what, we're looking for. This is what we want, and offer the new declaration and let it go from there.
By the way, Todd, your voice just got much higher. I don't know.
Higher, like louder, or
yeah, louder.
No,
Yeah.
louder.
Okay. I
Nice,
don't know
nice
why.
louder, but I know it's technology, gremlins.
Yeah,
Elon Musk is in the wires, obviously.
I guess so.
So yeah, that's good. And is this approach different from what you've been thinking, or have you been thinking of people in terms of Trump supporters? You know,
Well, there's someone on our call in our men's group, and we've been talking with him, but probably not really with the best approach. He tends to be very economically oriented, so that's his whole reason. I mean, he hates Trump as a person, but he still believes let's give him a chance. So, yeah, but that's so I don't know. I probably have been in the old mode when talking with him. And with others. Like I did have a conversation with my sister, and it didn't go very well. But I think if I took this approach, because there is a lot that we agree upon, and I just haven't really talked about it since that time. I mean, I do talk with her. I just don't bring up Trump or the whole any of that. But this gives me a new pathway, to say,
good.
hey, I know we agree on a lot, and the essence of what life is about, we agree on. And so, yeah.
Good. Well, you can try and have no expectations.
Right.
This is so important to be neutral. Otherwise, you're going to have indigestion day and night,
Yes.
right?
Being,
And that's going to
yes.
turn us into pretzels. It's going to make us angry. It's going to make us frustrated. We're going to hate our neighbors before they even open their mouths. I mean, I see it in myself. I look at people who I know actually agree with us, but they won't do anything. I'm angry at them,
Yeah.
and it would be really good if I had a more neutral reaction to that. Is like, well, I wonder why. If I want to know, if I so this goes back to what I did say in the beginning about do I, what's my intention? Do I
Yeah.
really want to know why they aren't doing anything? And one of the things that I do know is that people are afraid. And, we might talk about that. Look at how Trump has gone after law firms, big law firms, and
Right.
universities, and watch them crumble, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of
and what I want to say beyond that is everybody has a history, and very few have a history that's any good. Most people had difficult childhoods, and as a result of that, they may be very abrasive. They may use anger to make themselves feel powerful. They may try to look superior. They may be terrified. If I'm really having a conversation with a person, I want to follow that little river and see where it takes me. If I'm talking to this person, if I could have an attitude of I wonder why this person is having this, and I also have to acknowledge that I am extremely closed-minded. There is nothing that Trump could do that would make me think that that he was a decent human being. This is not just about policy. This is about inhumane, power hungry, all of those things that I think, that you think, right? So I'm not very open, and I have to admit that. But we can talk about fear, and we can talk about, gee, what if you feel inspired, you can say, does this remind you of somebody? You know, um, do you ever feel? Have you ever felt bullied? Did you think that, did you acquiesce? You just never know. You might have a really powerful conversation with a person if you relate to them as a person. So, Lizzie,
Yeah, so I didn't have any plans, and I still don't have any plans on, seeking out somebody who supports Trump. But if the opportunity comes up, this makes me feel more at ease in having a conversation. Um, I did have an opportunity when Trump was first elected. I know somebody who I work with
What?
who is a Trump supporter.
There
That
was some noise in it, but it was an opportunity she had to talk to someone who was a Trump supporter.
yeah, and I had to confront this person as far as because it was impacting my relationship with this person. And so I did have to share with this person, how I felt, because so we did talk about it. And I don't know if I got an honest answer out of this person,
Mm-hmm.
but I was able to explain, the impact it has on me. And, we've been able to continue to work together. It hasn't come up again. But I don't feel any animosity or, I don't know if they've changed their mind since Trump first came into office as far as seeing what they've done. So, but I think, I really agree with just talking to a person as a person and not somebody they stand for.
Yes, and that's when you say, well, I'm not. I don't have a plan to talk to a Trump supporter. The guy next to you in the line at the pharmacy might be a Trump supporter, and you're going to step on his toe, or you're going to avoid him in the line. You don't even know. You know what I'm saying? This is how bad it is. We say, well, I have no. I'm not looking for an argument, but I am looking to have an impact. If we are going to mobilize people, we need to get the majority of the people moving. And so you have to talk to people who may have supported Trump.
Yeah, and there is other opportunities at my job. There's people that come in and out that I do know are Trump supporters, and I asked one the other day. He was saying something. I'm like, oh, I'm just curious. Where do you get your news? And he told me. I was like, oh, okay, Fox. And I'm like, so it's like, well, how could I have talked more about that? It wasn't the right timing because of a class happening and whatnot. But how could I talk to somebody whose news source that they're getting is politically influenced by rich people, or not politically influenced, but it's influenced by.
Well, you see, but you're probably listening to. I only want to listen to the media that's against Trump. I don't want to listen to Fox News. Maybe sometimes they say something true. I don't want to hear it. So, yes, yeah, well, you're listening to Fox and I'm listening to MSNBC or something like that, right? And it's so let's not talk about all of that. Let's talk about this. I feel like you still have people, and I can understand it. I think we're all feeling impacted on personal levels. I mean, I'm triggered when I see Nazi salutes. You know, I was born at the end of the Holocaust. That bothers me. But it also bothers me that they're just taking people who are pro Palestinian and throwing them into gulags and, El Salvador. I feel a lot of pain about what's happening to people in the country. And when people talk about, undocumented workers, I say, have you been impacted by that? How do you think you've been impacted by undocumented? Well, yeah, the gardener. How do you know your gardener isn't undocumented? You know what I'm saying? You can talk about these things, but it's a, it's the categorizing of people. It's the fact that we have bought into the idea that we are different from one another. And no, I don't want to hear the other side, and they don't want to hear me. And I cop to that. So let's get beyond that, right? I feel threatened by certain things. I'm an empath. I feel sick about all the suffering. But I was sick about the suffering before Trump came into office. How many of us were worrying night and day about what's happening in because of global warming in Ethiopia. You know, when did we all of a sudden become so concerned about AIDS in Africa? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that we didn't worry about either, as long as we were comfortable and we were getting our needs met to some degree. It's really because of the fact that the administration has attacked so many people on so many levels. On so you know, talk about Trump in the economy, Todd. You know, Trump has lost his edge on the economy. So, you know, you could say, really? Is that really the reason that you supported him? What is he doing for the economy that you think is so good? I mean, you could even have that conversation. If you're not afraid, the thing is, and this is, I think, the most important point of what I'm trying to say, we have to stop being afraid. We have to stop being afraid in order to protest. We have to stop being afraid in order to talk. What am I afraid of? That somebody is going to be mean or is going to say something nasty to me or is going to put me down or is going to come up with some factoid and I don't have, you know, I wish I could walk around with a piece of paper with every statistic that I need in order to argue with them. But, you know, I feel, a lot of times I feel at a disadvantage because I don't have a good memory. But there are certain things I do see. We have to get over our fear of talking to each other, our fear of what someone is going to say to us, how they're going to treat us. And we need to stop treating people like they're not humans too. So that's my thought. Does anyone have anything else that they would like to share before? Yes, James.
On a personal level, regarding Trump and regarding people in positions of authority, I have to get over my fear of the man. Afraid that if the man doesn't like what I'm saying or doing, they're going to take me away to jail or some place else. And so I have to overcome my fear. And so I'm going to be rallying on this coming Saturday. I'm going to have a sign to have up there, and we're going to be saying hands off of this, hands off of that, hands off these other things.
The sign says meet our needs, James.
And our sign is going to say meet our needs, which is the theme of what we're going about.
Good idea.
Lena and I came up with that together last night. It was amazing. We both got the same thing, the same exact words.
And I just have to take the attitude, if the man doesn't like it, too bad. I've got to get up there and take a stand for what I believe.
And so let's equally get over our fear of talking to people. Not everybody who supports Trump is a monster or an asshole. You know, people have reasons. If we really want to have a conversation with people about it, then we have to be open to hear what those reasons are. But I also start by assume the connection. Assume there's a connection between yourself and everyone else. It's like saying, oh, well, he's a man, so I couldn't have anything in common with him. Or she's gay and I'm heterosexual and I couldn't have anything in common with her. Or she's black and evidently I'm white, although you never know it from this. You know, we don't have a connection. I wouldn't understand her. She wouldn't. You see, we have to get over that too. And so that we can get over our fears so we can relax and talk to everybody and anybody unless they're being abusive to us. And then we stop it. Don't pick a fight, but don't run away from a real.
Because we're looking for commonality.
Yeah.
And I've been going about it just the opposite.
That's right. If you assume the connection, then you will assume that there is a commonality. That's exactly right. So anyone else have anything they would like to say or share before we close for tonight's show? Yes. Amy?
Well, I just want to thank you so much, Lena, for bringing this up, and Beth for this discussion, and everyone, because it's a huge source of tension when it's until having heard your perspective and suggestions and recommendations and being aware of what our purposes of having the discussion in the first place, it takes so much stress out of it, including just walking away if it doesn't work.
That's right.
Like, it doesn't have to work.
That's right.
Be an attempt to connect. It doesn't work. Let it go.
That's right. Lighting the way is for everybody. Anybody can listen to this show. And I welcome people who disagree with me to listen to the show, but listen to what we're really saying. Don't mischaracterize me, which happens a lot. People will put you in a box also, just like we put them in a box. They will put you in a box. They will argue with your shadow. They will argue with your box. They'll tell you what you believe, and they'll argue with it. So say what you believe and give them a chance. Anyway, if you are watching us on Facebook, please give this show a love or a like. And if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. Become a subscriber on YouTube and click the notification bell, and become a follower on Facebook. And if you're watching on my personal page, remember will never see your comments live because we don't stream that. So with that, let's say a prayer that we have an opportunity to speak to people and to help to mobilize people for a better world. And we can't divide people up in our minds, because it's going to take all of us. It's going to take a lot of people, not just, that's the amazing thing. Look how many people are already in the streets and protesting and talking that who it looks like there's a lot more people who are upset about what's going on than you would have thought by the election results. So, yes, we are one. Thank you so much for listening and coming, and come back next Wednesday for Lighting the Way, and listen to our show tomorrow night, Thursday at 7 p.m., Magical Improvs. It's all about music to soothe our souls. Bye-bye. Please don't make noise.